Long before the first great empires rose and vanished, before the pyramids of Egypt touched the skies, or the walls of Babylon reached the heavens, ancient storytellers whispered of a lost paradise, a land so magnificent its memory echoes through millennia. Atlantis. Plato, the Greek philosopher, described it as a vast island kingdom, larger than Libya and Asia combined, lying beyond the Pillars of Heracles, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. Its people were said to be descendants of gods and mortals, blessed with wisdom, strength, and ingenuity. Atlantis was no ordinary land. It was the beating heart of an advanced civilization, a beacon of prosperity shining in an age of chaos. Its capital was a marvel of engineering, 3 concentric rings of land and sea connected by bridges, guarded by towering gates of polished bronze and black basalt. The city glittered with white marble palaces, golden temples, and streets paved with orichalcum, a legendary metal said to gleam like fire. At the very center stood a colossal temple to Poseidon, god of the sea, its walls adorned with silver, ivory, and precious stones. Atlanteans were masters of technology. They tamed rivers, built canals, and harnessed natural energy in ways lost to modern science. Their fleets of majestic ships roamed the oceans, and their armies were unmatched, clad in shimmering armor and armed with weapons of unknown power. Some believe their knowledge allowed them to manipulate forces of nature, a gift, or perhaps a curse. But beneath this golden splendor lay a fatal flaw: hubris. The kings of Atlantis, once noble, grew arrogant. Their hunger for power knew no bounds. They turned their gaze beyond their shores, seeking to conquer distant lands, including ancient Athens itself. The gods, Plato wrote, watched in anger. The Atlanteans, once favored, had defied the divine balance. And so, in a single cataclysmic day and night, the ocean swallowed the island whole. Mountains crumbled, fire rained from the skies, and waves taller than temples crashed upon the shining city. Atlantis was no more. Yet, its story endured. Was it merely a philosopher's allegory, a warning against human pride, or a fragment of forgotten history buried beneath the sea? Over centuries, explorers, scientists, and dreamers have searched for its remains. From the sunken ruins near Santorini to mysterious structures off the coast of Cuba, the whispers grow louder. Atlantis may be lost, but the mystery lives on. If Atlantis truly existed, it was not just a kingdom, it was a marvel of engineering, far beyond anything the ancient world had ever seen. According to Plato's descriptions, the Atlanteans had mastered the harmony between nature, architecture, and technology in ways that seem almost impossible even today. At the heart of the capital lay 3 concentric rings of land and water, perfectly carved by human hands and connected by massive stone bridges. Towering gates of bronze and polished basalt guarded the city, while wide canals brought fresh water from the mountains deep into the heart of the metropolis. The streets were paved with orichalcum, a mythical metal described as glowing like liquid fire. Temples were built from white marble, black basalt, and red stone, forming a dazzling contrast under the sun. At the city's center stood the Temple of Poseidon, a monumental structure adorned with ivory statues, golden roofs, and walls inlaid with precious stones. Inside, legend says, stood a colossal statue of Poseidon himself, driving 6 winged horses through waves of sculpted bronze. But the Atlanteans' true genius lay beneath the surface. They were said to have developed an intricate network of underground tunnels lined with polished limestone that reflected the glow of burning oil lamps. These tunnels carried fresh water, secret storage chambers, and even vast reservoirs that kept the entire city alive during times of drought. Some scholars believe that Atlantis may have harnessed geothermal energy. Ancient writings hint at a fire beneath the earth that powered their forges and heated their waters. It's said that their knowledge of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering rivaled, and perhaps even surpassed, that of our modern age. Atlanteans also possessed advanced naval power. Their fleets were unmatched, vast triremes and multi-decked ships adorned with golden figureheads cut through the oceans, carrying goods, soldiers, and explorers across the known world. Some theorists suggest that Atlantis may have established hidden colonies on distant continents, leaving behind traces of their civilization long after the main island sank. And yet, with such unimaginable power came an unquenchable thirst for more. Over generations, their kings, once wise and just, became consumed by ambition. The Atlantean Council debated not on how to preserve harmony, but on how to expand their influence, their eyes set upon Athens, Egypt, and lands beyond. It was this rising hubris that, according to Plato, drew the wrath of the gods. The Atlanteans had built a paradise, but their pride had sown the seeds of destruction. Was Atlantis destroyed by a divine punishment? Or did its technological advances backfire, triggering a cataclysmic chain reaction of earthquakes and floods? No one knows for certain. But the deeper we dive into its legend, the more it feels like a warning from the past. Atlantis was more than a lost city. It may have been the world's first superpower, and its first great tragedy. It began with a rumble beneath the earth. At first, the Atlanteans thought it was just another minor tremor, something common on an island rich with volcanic energy. But this was no ordinary quake. The ground split open with a sound like 1,000 mountains breaking apart. From the heart of the city, fountains of steam erupted as the Earth's crust groaned under unimaginable pressure. Across the concentric canals, bridges collapsed, statues of gods toppled, and temples cracked as shock waves rolled beneath the golden streets. Then came the thunder, not from the sky, but from the depths below. Massive columns of fire burst from hidden fissures, staining the heavens in crimson and black. Eyewitness accounts, preserved in fragments, speak of the sun itself disappearing behind a choking wall of ash. The Atlanteans ran to the higher terraces, carrying their children and treasures, but the sea had already turned against them. Waves taller than the city walls rose on the horizon, shimmering under the faint glow of molten lightning. Ships were torn from their moorings, hurled into the streets as if by an invisible hand. Inside the Temple of Poseidon, priests knelt before the towering golden statue, their voices trembling with ancient hymns. But even here, the marble floors cracked beneath their knees, and the sacred fires were extinguished by gales of suffocating smoke. In the harbor, warships collided, their masts snapping like twigs under the violent winds. The once mighty Atlantean fleet, proud symbol of empire, was smashed to splinters in a matter of moments. And then, silence. It lasted only an instant, like the final breath before drowning. From the western ridge, survivors would later describe seeing the ocean rear up like a living beast. The waves struck with unimaginable force, shattering what remained of the lower city. Entire districts vanished beneath the foam. The golden streets, the markets, the gardens, all swallowed whole. Above the chaos, the royal palace stood defiant, its white walls gleaming faintly in the stormlight. But as the ground beneath it gave way, the massive structure slid into the abyss with a roar that drowned even the screams of its people. By dawn, there was nothing left. Where once stood the greatest civilization the world had ever seen, the ocean stretched endlessly, calm and silent, hiding its secrets beneath dark waters. Only scattered fragments remained. Broken statues, shattered marble, and the ghosts of a forgotten empire. Plato would later write that the gods punished Atlantis for its arrogance and greed. But standing at the edge of this mystery today, one cannot help but wonder, was it divine wrath, a natural disaster, or a catastrophe of the Atlanteans' own making? Perhaps Atlantis was not destroyed by its enemies, but by the very power it tried to control. And so, beneath the waves, it sleeps, its secrets locked away by time. But every legend whispers the same haunting promise. Atlantis will rise again, or its fate will be ours to repeat. For thousands of years, the fate of Atlantis has haunted humanity's imagination. When Plato first described the sunken empire in his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, many believed he spoke in allegory. To others, it was a warning, a glimpse into the dangers of hubris and divine punishment. But from that moment on, generations of explorers have been drawn to the mystery like moths to a flame. In the ancient world, scholars debated its location. Some claimed Atlantis lay beyond the Pillars of Hercules, modern Gibraltar, deep in the Atlantic Ocean. Others believed it rested within the Mediterranean, near Crete or Santorini, pointing to the catastrophic eruption that wiped out the Minoan civilization. Even now, archaeologists argue whether Plato's words were a coded map or simply poetic invention. During the Age of Discovery, the obsession grew. Spanish and Portuguese explorers carried Plato's texts across uncharted seas, convinced they would stumble upon the ruins of the sunken empire. Rumors spread of golden cities glimpsed through shifting waters and strange artifacts washed ashore after violent storms. In the 19th century, Atlantis fever reached its peak. Scholars like Ignatius Donnelly proposed that Atlantis was the cradle of all civilizations, claiming its survivors founded the great cultures of Egypt, Mesoamerica, and Mesopotamia. His theories captured the public imagination, fueling an avalanche of myths and pseudoscience that blurred fact and fantasy. Modern science, however, has taken the hunt to new depths, literally. Using satellite imaging, deep-sea sonar, and submersible drones, researchers have mapped the ocean floor in unprecedented detail. In the Bahamas, strange underwater stone structures were discovered, sparking heated debates. In Spain, the marshlands of Doñana hide circular ruins eerily similar to Plato's descriptions. One of the most tantalizing leads comes from the Azores, a volcanic archipelago rising from the Atlantic abyss. Here, divers claim to have seen geometric formations buried beneath shifting sands, as if an entire city sleeps beneath the waves. Yet no discovery has silenced the skeptics. For every photograph of an Atlantean column, there is a scientific explanation. Natural formations, volcanic ridges, coral patterns. Still, the mystery refuses to die. Why? Because Atlantis is more than a lost city. It is a mirror. Every age sees in its story what it fears and what it desires. For some, Atlantis warns against unchecked ambition. For others, it promises hidden knowledge and forgotten power. Each theory, each expedition, carries the same unspoken question. If Atlantis truly existed, could its secrets change the future? Even today, international teams prepare for new expeditions, armed with AI mapping, quantum imaging, and technologies once unthinkable. Somewhere, perhaps just beyond reach, Atlantis waits. And maybe, just maybe, the ocean isn't hiding ruins, but something still alive. The legend of Atlantis is more than a story about a city lost beneath the waves. It is a warning, carved into the memory of humanity, a ghost whispering across millennia. According to Plato, Atlantis was a marvel of engineering and power. Its temples shone with orichalcum, a mysterious metal brighter than copper. Its harbors swarmed with fleets that dominated the seas, and its philosophers claimed knowledge of the stars, tides, and forces of nature long before other civilizations. But with power came arrogance. The Atlanteans, Plato wrote, forgot humility and turned against the gods. In their greed, they expanded across the known world, clashing with Athens in a war that shook the ancient Mediterranean. And then, in a single night of fire and flood, Atlantis was gone. For centuries, skeptics dismissed this tale as myth, but scattered clues across the world suggest a more unsettling truth. In Egypt, ancient priests spoke of a people before the first kings who vanished in a great flood. In Mesoamerican legends, the Aztecs described a lost ancestral island called Aztlan. Across the Pacific, Polynesian myths speak of a shining land swallowed by the ocean. Could these echoes point to a shared memory, fragments of a catastrophe so vast it reshaped human history? Modern scientists search for answers, yet the deeper we dive, the stranger the ocean becomes. Beneath miles of pressure and darkness, there are places where sonar returns impossible patterns. Geometric shapes on the sea floor, monolithic structures carved by unknown hands. Some researchers quietly ask what they cannot publish. What if Plato underestimated them? Because if Atlantis possessed knowledge, not magic, but science so advanced it seemed like magic, then its fall carries a terrifying lesson. Civilizations rise and fall, not because of the wrath of gods, but because of their own hubris. Today, we stand on the edge of powers the Atlanteans could only dream of. Genetic engineering, quantum computing, artificial intelligence. We build cities that shine at night like constellations reborn. But history whispers, what if we too are Atlantis? Perhaps this is why the legend refuses to fade. Atlantis haunts us, not because we lost it, but because we see ourselves within it. And somewhere, beneath the restless waves, the ruins sleep, silent, patient, waiting.